What's going on, everybody? And today we're going to be doing the video for orbital filling diagrams. Now these work out really similar to the ECNs that we worked out. But instead of us just listing, we're actually going to be doing a little bit more work. Now, you may not be able to see it super well on this, but I'm changing this a little from last year, and I will be actually giving you these empty boxes. And what you're going to have to do is we're going to use these boxes to sketch what we're actually going to be labeling as our electrons. We're not just going to write them out. So for example, sulfur as an ECN, if you want to pause the video and try to figure out what its ECN is, go ahead and do that. I'm going to do it in a couple of seconds. But we're going to take the information that would have just been 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2, 3p4, and we're instead going to map it onto some sketches. So if you remember, every orbital can hold 2 electrons. That's why there's only one possible orientation for that orbital. So that's why these are all 1s2 and then s2. But these are p6 because p orbitals, there can be arranged 3 of them on one level. So you'll notice that this box has 1 box, then this has 3. Down here we've also got one that has 5. That's going to be representing a d subshell. That d subshell can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 orbitals. So we're going to draw in, instead of labeling it like this, we are going to say that this box is 1s, but we're not going to put a 2 here. We're instead going to add 1, 2 lines, an up arrow and a down arrow. So if I draw that knot in the box, it's going to be an up arrow and then a down arrow. Okay, so that seems pretty straightforward. So this next one will be 2s, and we'll do an up arrow and a down arrow. Now, when we get to the next box, there is technically one other rule we care about. And if you think about the rules we learned about already in class, you might be able to figure that out. So we've already been following the Aufbau principle. They occupy the energy level lowest first. And then we also needed to make sure that we used the Pauli exclusion principle, which is actually what we're doing by making one of these go up and one of them go down. We're making sure that they differ from each other only by spin. And then our last rule is Hund's rule. And Hund's rule says that every orbital needs to have 1 electron before you give any of them a second one. So even though there is 6 in here, we would technically fill this out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now it doesn't matter for this one because it was completely full, and this was 2p. But it will matter if you get to one that is not completely full. So we've gotten 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2. Now this last one is 3p4, so we don't just fill it in. Instead, we need to go in and we add them 1 to each box before we go back and give any of them a second. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, and then 4. And so this was 3s, and then this is 3p. So there is our orbital filling diagram. This whole section right here, minus my little extra drawing that I did, just this chunk right here, that is the orbital filling diagram for sulfur. And I will provide you these boxes, I believe. Maybe on some of the questions I won't, but on most of the questions you will be provided the boxes. You won't have to draw them. Some places you may see lines, so it might go like this instead. But it works out the exact same. You would still go 1s, 2s, 2p. And it will still work the exact same way. So again, a couple of things about this. Every box represents an orbital. The reason why, for example, S only has 1 box is because there's only 1 possible orbital. P gets 3 because there's 3 possible orbitals. D would get 5, and F would get 7. We also have to put electrons from lowest to highest because that is Hund's rule. And we also need to make sure that we fill them in where 1 electron gets them, or every orbital gets 1 electron before we go back and give any of them a second. That's why this one wasn't up, down, up, down. It was up, 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 and then a down. This first orbital will be full, and these 2 will be half full. That was the last rule that we talked about. Now, you don't need to know a ton of information about the actual process going on here, you're just going to want to make sure that you get practice doing these and being able to kind of do these. And again, just like with the ECN, the pattern is the exact same every time. 1S is always first, followed by 2S, followed by 2P, then 3S, then 3P, then 4S, then 3D, then 4P. It always just goes in that exact same order. So if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email. Otherwise, I hope you have a great rest of your day. This is Mr. Diamond signing off.